Hey, it's Hannah, and welcome to my podcast, Our Genuine Connection. During your time here, I hope you let yourself experience what it means to be human, because that's really what life is about. Not long ago, my entire life was flipped upside down. My husband and soulmate Ian, the most joyful, calm, loving human, died in a workplace accident just 6 weeks before we were supposed to be married. And to be honest with you, I don't know what I'm doing. Like almost at all. Ian and I have been sharing our lives online for over 5 years, and I've been creating content for over 7. That part of our life has always been about sharing love, joy, and connection. And now, even as I pivot everything, I want to continue sharing his love, his spirit, and the lessons he taught me. I'm figuring it out as I go, and I hope you'll come along with me. This podcast isn't polished, and it's definitely not about perfection. It's about showing up as we are. It's about walking through life together. It's about living with the lessons Ian taught me and continues to teach me, and carrying forward the love he shares with all of us. So whether you're grieving, healing, or just craving something real, thanks for being here. We're trying to figure this out together. I'm so glad you're here. And I believe Ian's glad I'm here too. Hi, lovies. Welcome back to Our Genuine Connection. This is episode 8, and I know that I say this every time, but it's actually wild. And we have an incredible guest today. So today we have Grant Garry, who reached out to me online after seeing a video of mine, and he offered me deep support, and he's had a huge impact on this stinky, awful, but real grief journey and part of my life now, unfortunately. And so I'm very grateful to Grant. And thank you so much, Grant, for everything and for the initial reach out and offering me your incredible film, Meet Me Where I Am. So Grant, if you want to tell us a few things about yourself, then I've got some questions about your movie, as well as how you've sort of come to this place of understanding such deep parts of grief, and why you chose to share them.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, I want to say I'm sorry that we know each other, and at the same time, I'm grateful that we know each other, because I believe that community is everything in these situations. As you said, yeah, I made the film Meet Me Where I Am, a film about grief, but more specifically, like how we process grief and how we can better be there for our friends and loved ones, and what showing up looks like. So I fell into this sort of space, and I'm honored to be part of it. And I'm an actor. I'm an actor first. My degree's in theater, and I do musicals. So people are always kind of perplexed that I'm in this grief space as well. But I think anyone and everyone should be part of this community, whether as a griever or as an ally. So here we are.
Beautiful. Thank you, Grant. Really, I'm quite touched that you had reached out to me. I was really struggling with some things, and I know that I've mentioned this before, but seriously, I was sitting on the front steps watching the trailer to the film 40 or 60 times. Like, I was just entranced because it was so validating, the trailer alone. And it really helped me feel it like the trailer alone was kind of like a journey itself. It shares such deep, sad moments, and it gets to a point that is so really inspirational. When one of the actors or one of your guests on the movie says, do you just want it to be a sad story? Or do you want to make this story, something else sort of along those lines? And that part hit me, because I remember just nodding and being like, yes, like Ian deserves more, and I deserve more, and we deserve more for the rest of our lives. In whatever way that together is, we deserve more. So thank you. Yeah, deeply impactful.
Absolutely.
So I know that you just touched on the importance of community in this grief space, but what made you reach out to me? Lots of people have the ideas of, oh, I could do this, or I could text the person or I could reach out in whatever way, but so many people are so uncomfortable with it. So I know that your film is about grief and you seem to be quite comfortable about like with it. But was there a certain switch, or is there advice that you would give people if you can kind of explain what made you email me? And then what sort of advice you would give to people who are trying to support grievers?
Mm-hmm. Well, first I want to say, the the worst thing that could have happened is you just didn't respond to me and we never connected, right? I mean, and that can be true in people in grief. But I've learned over the years that the most important people, the ones that were the most helpful, were the ones that showed up. Now, that can be a very broad statement, but it was always the people that didn't try and fix anything. It was the people that were just there to let me scream or cry or yell in grief, because your grief needs to be witnessed. And so I've gotten very comfortable when I see people who are grieving, whether it be friends or sometimes in this case strangers. We didn't know each other prior to this experience. I can tell when people are in acute grief. And just from the video I saw of you, I could tell how fresh it was. And while I can't fix anything, there's nothing to fix. This is a perfectly normal, grief is very normal, for you to be going through in this experience. I was just offering maybe a little added support. And so I've gotten comfortable just, offering some of these. I consider the film a tool to help grievers better understand what they're going through, and at the same time for our friends, our loved ones, to learn how to better support those who are also grieving. So it's really like kind of for everybody, it's like where do you fit into it? But it's just important for me to share these things, especially when I see someone say something where I want so badly for them to know that like everything you are feeling is normal. Like the pain that you're experiencing is normal, and that it's not that you're going crazy. It's something crazy and terrible happened to you.
Yeah, I like that, because my mom said like numerous times in the beginning, like, you're not going crazy. This is a crazy situation. And whether it's anticipated, so, you've lost someone through illness or an accident so completely sudden, yeah, I think that grief can make a lot of people feel like they're going crazy because we just don't talk about it.
Right.
Before Ian died, I would see videos online and I would just scroll past them because I was like, I don't want this juju. I don't want this juju. I don't want it. And unfortunately, that had little impact. And so, yeah, knowing that like you're not going crazy is really helpful, because what the heck, Ian just died.
Well, and in fresh grief, in acute grief, it's like our minds are trying to catch up with it too, which is why I think you and I have talked about this before. It's so important to take it just like minute by minute, because we might wake up today and say, oh, let's go out to our favorite restaurant tonight. But then the night might come around and we're not in the space to physically go out and enjoy that meal. And so it's really allowing space for you to process and just having that compassion for yourself in these moments, and knowing and having an awareness that it is going to be different. It is going to feel different from one day to the next.
When you use the term acute grief, I really appreciate that, because it's only been 4 months, but whoa, has the grief ever grown and shifted and lessened in ways. And when I say lessened, I mean, I guess like that acute grief that you're speaking about. So I know what it means for me. Do you have an explanation? And then also, when you mention acute grief, do you see it as also a part of grief that can come up? Like your grief can be somewhat steady or however we would call it. And then in 3 years, I could have, whatever could happen and I could be in that space again. Do you kind of see it as the timeline, which I think you would say there's no timeline to grief?
Right. Grief is not linear. You move in and out of these feelings, and there's so many. It's so overwhelming. It's understandable that it would be like that too. It's an overwhelming experience. I cannot promise you anything other than it will change as you move forward. And change doesn't necessarily mean positive or negative, but you will feel different. 4 months is still incredibly fresh, and I think you have done, from what I've seen, you've done an amazing job with your processing and your healing journey, because you're talking about it. You're open about it. I mean, just think if you haven't been talking about everything that's been going through your head these last, 4 months. I mean, I think that would potentially be more have more negative effects on you if you just kept it all inside. And that goes back to my previous statement of grief needs to be witnessed. And David Kessler, grief specialist David Kessler, who's featured in my film, told me when we sat down, he said he learned about, I believe it was the animal buffaloes. He learned about buffaloes when he was writing his book. And he said, when there's a storm, the buffaloes run into the storm to minimize the amount of time that they're actually in the storm, as opposed to turning away from it as the storm would continue to move after them. And so he landed on this, which is what we run from pursues us, and what we face transforms us. And I feel like you've been doing an incredible job at facing your grief and not shying away from it. So that is something to be applauded. I think you've been doing an amazing job with this.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so funny to me because this is just like who I am. So for me, it doesn't really feel like an option. Like, why would I not yell at the sky when I'm by myself? Or why would I not tell my mom how I'm feeling? Why would I not interrupt a conversation with a friend that she's talking about something in her own life that I'm able to be present for because she's been able to show up for me? It's like this loop and continuous. But for me, it's not an option.
Right.
Like, it's just who I am. How would I?
Do you feel like because you have experience having such a public and open space online, being that you have been in this space online for quite some time now, that it was easier for you to share this experience?
That's a great question. I wouldn't say easier online. I would say that I have incredible support offline and online, and I'm a very strong person offline and online. Like, I've had for years very solid base. I have an incredible family. I have an incredible community. I have so many different incredible communities. So I wouldn't say that it was easy. I would be doing this offline if I wasn't sharing it online. It's like, so easier, yeah, let's say, rather than starting post Ian's dying, but also really weird and difficult because, it kind of depends on which platform. People on my Instagram that have followed Ian and I for years, I think a lot of them are like, what is going on? Lots of them have been able to, send me messages or comments or let me know that they're thinking of me. But no, it's definitely something that I'm still figuring out. And I think that as long as I keep showing up, which is what I'm doing, there will be different difficulties. I've gotten some comments that that's like a journey of itself. Learning now about comments about, why are you still talking about this? Or I understand yesterday I know that it's sad, but I feel like you're milking it at this point. Right. And it's wild because first, it's 4 months. But anyway, I could be 30 years down the line and start an account speaking about how my husband, 6 weeks before our wedding, died 30 years before and how that has impacted in whatever way. And that is just as valid, you know, like there is no question, like you said, there's no timeline to grief. So some people just don't get it, which makes it an experience. This is all an experience. But easier? No, I don't really think any of this is easy, you know? But speaking to the camera, I find therapeutic.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at, and I think that's good to find some comfort in being able to talk about it, because you do seem incredibly open about it. I mean, you have been, at least with me, and I think, you know, I don't call myself an expert on the on the topic, and I do truly believe, like, you know, whatever works for you in these moments is the right thing for you. So, you know, I encourage you to feel your feelings, and if speaking to the camera it does feel good, by all means, of course, please do it. You know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's really interesting. I'll be having a difficult time and record it, and that's kind of a way for me to like get it out. So yeah, I definitely, you know, my relationship with being online and creating things has definitely changed in lots of ways. Yeah, but it's so important. And
yeah,
like,
I mean, it's like journaling. I mean, you're able to share everything that's in your heart and your head with, you know, a space, and that's good.
so this woman who's coming in now for a Valentine's Day meetup that I've organized, because why not? She asked me, do you write? And I said, no, I post TikToks of me sobbing online. But yeah, that's kind of my artistic thing, I guess, that I do to process. Yeah, so that was funny. Okay. So you've already touched on this a bit, but I do want to ask this question. As someone who didn't know me personally, but still cared enough to connect, what have you learned about showing up for grieving people, even strangers, with empathy instead of fear? So I know that you said hold space and, you know, really like validate. Just holding space and sitting there and them saying whatever they need to is so validating. But I like the point about with empathy instead of fear. So do you want to touch on what you know about fear and grief and how that stops people from being able to show up in any sort of capacity?
Yeah, I mean, on a very base level, I think people don't know what to say, and they're afraid of saying the wrong thing, and so we don't say anything at all. And what I've learned is I'm not here to judge anyone's grief experience. It's all valid. Grief is valid. And I have learned that while, like, for you, for example, like, I did not know, and I'll never know your full experience with it. There's no way of knowing. And at the same time, I can still acknowledge that it's very hard and it's very painful and at times confusing. And just allowing space for that, I think, opens up a lot more in how we move forward in healing. Because if I can understand that, then we can start a dialogue if we want to. You know, it's like my job isn't to, like I said, isn't to try and fix you or anyone in grief. If you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. I'm not afraid to ask questions. And, you know, if you don't want to talk about it, we just won't talk about it. It's really that simple. And so I do think if anyone's like looking for sort of advice on how to show up and not be afraid, letting them know that you're here is the first step, because it just like generally lets them know like where you are to them. You're like, I am here to support you. Now, don't say things like, let me know if you need anything, because that'll put the burden on the griever. It's like, I'm grieving right now. Now I have to figure out a task for you. But I always say, assess the relationship you have with the person and then go from there. You know, sometimes a text message might be sufficient. Other times, if you know their favorite restaurant, then you can ask them, hey, would you like me to bring a meal from your favorite restaurant? Yes or no. Typically, a griever can answer yes or no. But also, don't put any pressure on them to answer you right now or ever. Just letting them know that you're there and that you're not feeling what they're feeling necessarily, but you're going to be on the road with them, I think is really important.
So, kind of one concise message that you would instruct people to say if they know someone who's grieving and have no clue what to say, regardless of relationship, would be, "Hi, I'm here."
I think that's a great place to start. And like I said, I don't know what you're going through. However, I know that it is a very challenging experience. And that kind of just establishes like you're here to support them. Now, a caveat I will say to that is that that's not where we should end our grief support. We should check in with them 4 months later, 6 months later, a year later. There are people now who've had people that have died over 10 years ago, and maybe they might bring them up, maybe they won't, but just checking in and say, how are you doing with that experience? Where are you at with your grief today? I think is nice because it shows that you care and it shows that you haven't forgotten their person. And many times, I don't want to speak for other people, but many times we don't want to forget our people, and we want people to know them and hear their name. And I think that's important too as we move forward.
That's what I was going to say. The only thing that I would add is like say their name. Mm-hmm. It has been shocking to me how many people I've heard from online that are like, people don't ask their name and it's been 2 months. It's like 2 months. Like, what is going on in the world that all of us are born, all of us will die, and people are worried or scared to say the wrong thing, that they don't say the person's name.
It's really interesting, and speaking from experience, I think I used to be that way. So I feel like I would have like beat around the bush a little bit, like been like, oh, your husband or your girlfriend or your this. It's like, just, it's not. It's the same. It takes the same amount of energy to just say their name. And I think the problem is people, and this kind of goes back to the fear. I feel people might feel like, oh, if I say his name, if I say Ian, that might upset you or that might make you sad. And I don't want to make you sad. But the truth of the matter is there's nothing that I can do that's going to make you sad or make you remember it. Like, of course, you're living with this every single day. And if anything, like as long as I know that it's okay with you, then yeah, let's absolutely say his name.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, can we say his name on 3? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Ian. Yay. Thanks, Grant. You're awesome. You're great. Okay, let's talk about Meet Me Where I Am more. Sure. So I will say, from a viewer's perspective of someone who just lost Ian, I watched it in 3 chunks because I have lots of trauma to process, and honestly will always be processing it. We were with Ian, and I haven't talked about this really at all online, but we were with Ian for a few hours in the hospital with him and his body and his soul. And so, yeah, just needed to take the movie kind of in chunks and watch when I was ready and stop when it felt like too much, just solely based on that trauma piece. And I kept watching it. And I just found so much comfort. Like, even, like I told you, just the trailer, Grant, is so validating. So validating. Like, you hear people's pain. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I just the whole time was nodding my head and saying verbally, like, yes, and crying. And just in the space of people get it, and so many people get it. And get it on different levels and in different capacity, whether it's because it's happened to themselves or because they have learned how to support other people through it, which I think in turn is a huge blessing, if I can say. Learning about grief, being able to support others through grief. Like I said, we're all going to die. We all will have people that will die. And so just this whole community, I think is a big, big, big blessing. So one part that I really like about the film and why I think it's kind of universal to so many different viewers is because it's talked about from so many different points of views, right? You have parents who've lost their child. You have a woman who's lost her sister. You have people who are professionals in this field speaking about it from I was going to say more detached or distant point of view. No, it's not that at all. But maybe they were just speaking about it from a point of view that wasn't my daughter died. This is our story around that. And so I'm wondering, tell me more about the film and how you positioned it the ways that you did, how you didn't think to only have people who were in intense grief, how you didn't think to only have professionals who could speak about it from a different point of view. Just the whole essence of the film is so captivating and so validating and so important to so many different people. So I'm wondering how you created that from the beginning.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It certainly was a collaborative art. You know, I couldn't have done this by myself, and I couldn't have done it without these other folks sharing their experiences. And I'm deeply grateful for everyone who opened up and shared all their experiences and their stories with us. It was very deeply moving. I worked really closely with a good friend of mine, James Slavin, who, you know, I owe a lot in part to him in collaborating with me on this project and really shaping the final edit in the way that we see it today. And to your part about these people and their stories, it was important for me to have, of course, like specialists and professionals in the space, authors, but also have individuals who were not actors, were not authors, just individual people with these lived experiences. And at the same time, the experts also had their own grief experiences as well. So we always kind of joke about it, where it's like, if you were watching a documentary about cancer, you had all these doctors or experts talking about it. They probably don't have the cancer or the disease that they're speaking on most of the time. But every single person in this documentary also has their own lived experience. And I thought that was a really important piece of the film.
Interesting. Did you find that the experiences of personal grief with the professionals, that they became professionals based on that, or that they'd been professionals in it and then these experiences came?
There was a combination of people. So some of them had grief experiences that led them into this space, led them into the field that they're in, led them to write a book on it. And others had, it had been a subject that was deeply meaningful to them, and they wanted to be in that space prior. So we had a mix of people and a mix of stories, which I think is really important because it shows that, again, anybody can be an ally to this community, because this community is made up of our friends and our loved ones and our family members. So it's really important to be part of it.
Interesting. Okay. And then when you did the final edit, I'm just curious, how did you choose particular lines to keep in and ones to cut out? Were you seeing it from a film point of view? Were you seeing it from a grief point of view? Or is the answer kind of like, Hannah, it was both, how can it not be?
It was both. I was trying to watch it with the knowledge I had from personal experience, studying the subject extensively, the hundreds of books I had read in preparation, and I was trying to watch it as sort of an everyday moviegoer, someone in grief, and someone that may have had like a specific experience. So you may have remembered there's like one woman talks about her dog. And it was really important for me to have that in there because I thought, okay, maybe not everyone's going to be watching this that has had a sibling pass or a child, they've lost a child, but someone might be watching that doesn't have children, right? Or someone might be watching that doesn't have this type of relationship, but somebody could be watching that has a dog or a pet. And so it was important for me to have, you could only get so many different stories in with, the 90-minute runtime ish that we had. But it was important to have a variety in there because I wanted to show that it's something that is grief is a universal experience. And I wanted to just show a variety of people with different backgrounds and different lived experiences.
It's funny that you brought up the dog. So when I'm watching it, I'm with a friend and my mom watching it, and then it gets to the dog. And I was like, are we on the same page right now? Like, for sure, grief, horrible, right? But like a dog, different experience.
Sure.
Not that it's invalidating at all. And then, but I was like, that was kind of my response.
Sure.
But then the more that I got to know her, and like you can just tell she's like a quirky, awesome, very interesting, unique, and really, really, really cool woman. So of course, losing her dog is impactful, and of course, losing your dog is impactful.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting experience, and I'm very thankful that anger has been a very small part of this journey so far. And that's not because anger and grief isn't so fair. It's because of who I am and who Ian and I were, and all of these things in the base, right? Things that we talked about before. Mm-hmm. But just like the film in itself really took me through this journey and so many smaller journeys, like the entire time and overall. And so my question is, was there any part of you, and this I need to learn from you, was there any part of you that, not worried, but that reflected on, should we include this? Or were you worried at all? Like when I mentioned the trauma and how that was difficult for me, so I needed to watch it in chunks. Were you worried at all about, you're talking about grief, right? And so, yes, we can know lots of ways and feel really confident and know that our communication is comforting and very validating. But you made a film that will go out to whoever will watch it, and they may or may, like, they will have different reactions, right? So just like I explained, so validating. And it was also difficult in different ways that took me through this journey that I've reflected on, et cetera, et cetera. I have something that I'm working on about like putting out content. I am quite aware, and it is a concern of mine, that I trigger different people who are widows, who have lost. So that's something that I'm always working out as well. But flipping that long story long on you, was there any point of that? And do you appreciate that I'm being honest with you about how the film was also difficult in some ways, and then kind of how I was able to consume it and have an incredible experience with it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's amazing that you continued to move forward in watching it. I can totally understand why someone would want to shut it off if it's just too painful. And to be honest, I'm still struggling with finding the words and how to present it to people who I know could potentially benefit from it.
So people who could support grievers right now.
Yeah, or people who are in grief that are watching it even. I mean, I was talking to David Kessler about it. How do we know when it's the right time to read a book on our grief experience or watch a movie on it? And not everyone has the capacity to sit down and read a book. So I think that it's nice just to let people know that it's there. sort of in another way of like, I'm thinking about you and I'm thinking about your experience. And if you're looking for a little extra support, there is this film that's available, but there's no pressure to watch it now or ever. I just sometimes knowing that it's there can make all the difference.
Of course. I mean, we have to know that it's there to watch the trailer 40 to 60 times and feel so validated and then watch the movie.
I do think, to your point, though, it's tough. It's a hard subject that we in the United States are still very scared of dealing with. You know, we just don't talk about it. We're just so like, let's get back to work. We're always the best and we have to win, and we don't talk about it. So even when we started opening up the conversation about it with this film, I think even a lot of film festivals, I talked about this with James, like they were scared to program it and they were scared to have it at their festival. Not that it's like a scary film. I think they just don't know how other people are going to react to it, which is a very, you know, that is kind of like one of the biggest themes in grief is like, we don't know how a person's going to react.
Right. That's so interesting because then, you know, I'm looking at the poster behind you and it's like really like it's such light colors and, you know, like looks really quite beautiful and wow, people are terrified, hey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting.
Wild.
It's interesting. Yeah, they hear that it's about grief and they don't think they can watch it. And a lot of times, you know, for me, like part of my goal is to get just like normal everyday guys like myself to be more comfortable having these conversations. Because so many people think like, oh, I don't want to watch that because it's going to make you sad. It's going to make me sad, so I don't want to watch it. And I'm like, well, maybe that's a good reason to watch it, is maybe you can better understand why you're sad, you know, or
Right.
why you're afraid to watch it.
Right. Yeah. And maybe it can be that tool. That reminds me when you said maybe you're, like being scared to watch it. I have a song that I listen to sometimes when I just need to cry. Ian lost someone a number of years ago, and I remember him walking down the stairs and I think he said something or just looked, you know, off or something. And I was like, babe, are you okay? And then he was like, no, and mentioned who died. And he came up to the bedroom and lied in bed and he put on a song and just started sobbing, just sobbing. And I was like, babe, like you might, you know, one of my reactions like, is this song good for you right now? Like, do you want to listen to it? And he said, yeah, I just need to be sad and cry. And when I need to be sad and cry and when I need to cry, and like I just had, you know, it's like this feeling in my body and it'll be like the end of the day. And it's not that I didn't cry that day. I cry every day. But I just need like a good, like, let it out, sob and screaming. I listen to this song. And so that kind of is like this film. Like it's a way to understand and process and then more so be validated and hear words of community and support. And like we spoke about earlier, you're not going crazy. It's just not spoken about.
Mm-hmm. I was just in a group this last week of people at the Grieftastic book fair here in Los Angeles, and we were and we were talking about we were going around the room and asking like, do you have a grief song? Do you have a grief playlist? And everyone had something. And I think words on a page can be moving. I think hearing other people saying things can be very moving, and I think music can be extremely moving and extremely validating. And many times, I know in my own experience, I've used music to access those parts of me because they wouldn't otherwise come out in the way that they do without it. So I encourage that, and I think to your point, like, yeah, I think sometimes we just need to sit and be sad. And if anyone's looking at how to support a griever, let them be sad, let them cry, let them yell and scream into a pillow. as long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting other people, do what you have to do to process this, because again, it's an overwhelming experience.
Yeah, that it is. And it's hard, I think, also to, like, we can tell people and educate for sure on, like, what are the things to say and the kind of space to go into, prior to being physically with that person to be able to support them. But for me, it comes down to my original message, which was my original message creating content with Ian and for the few years before I did. It's self-love. Like, you don't need, but I think significantly easier to help someone else through the most difficult time of their life if you see yourself in a way that has something to offer, that regardless of how you look, you're incredibly valuable, that your love means something, that we as people, as individuals, are so impactful and so powerful and have so much love and beauty to offer. But like you said, don't be scared. And how are you not scared? And how do you just not turn it off if that's the only, response that you know? But yeah, I guess love for people and just authenticity. And I think just like being raw and real and genuine is so important. And there's no way that I could get through this not doing that. And there's no way that the people who have been able to support me in, oh my gosh, what impactful, deep, deep, deep ways would not be able to if we weren't able to have communication, if they didn't know themselves well enough to be able to have that communication prior to bringing it to me. Whether it's, hey, next week it works better for me to do one morning instead of two because I just don't have time, or hey, texting at 10, hey, like, do you need me to come over right now just for an hour just to make sure you're okay? I speak about this, but I had a really scary night, I guess 5 weeks ago now or 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And had to totally intentionally choose not to off myself one night because my husband just died 6 weeks before our wedding. And I had a friend come over twice the next day, and she saw me in the morning, and she has kids. And she made sure that they had childcare so that she could come and show up. Like, the next morning, she made me get out of the house and go do something Jewish, which was so important. And then she came over a few hours later, and then she said, I'm gonna come over tonight. And I was like, yeah, actually, that would be a great idea. I'm not scared anymore, but I would love for you to be there. And she was only able to show up because she knows herself well enough, because she knows her boundaries, because she has great communication with her support system, because she has childcare, so all these things of, at the end of the day with grief, like, it is so about being able to show up for yourself. Because if Ian and I weren't able to show up for ourselves, we wouldn't have been able to show up for each other in our relationship and all of these things, right? And we wouldn't have even lasted. And so, yeah, knowing yourself, communication.
As you look back on that night today, how is it sitting with you?
I'm not scared at all that I'm going to off myself ever. I do feel like I needed to have that because it scared the shit out of me and other people, but also because of who I am and like how strong my love is with Ian and how beautiful our relationship was and is, but really, really, really was. For me, it's like, of course I had a night that I had to make that choice. I had explained to my friend, like, it's not only like, and this is just how I feel, it's not only like I was in an accident and the bottom half of my body was ripped off, but Ian's still here. So he'll build everything. He'll carry me. He'll do everything. So I can do this because Ian's still here. It's like the bottom half of my body was ripped off and Ian's not here because I have to learn everything new. Something that you had in your film that was so impactful was that when you lose someone, you lose the person. You also lose the person who saw how you were with this person, right? Everything that I was to Ian. Excuse me. And that we worked so hard to be at that place together. It's not gone, but Ian's not here to witness it, right? And so there's so many things that are so hard about this. So it makes total sense why that night happened. And it makes total sense why I chose not to do that. So when I look back on it, I feel sad because I was really scared. And I'm really sad that Ian's dead. For so many of us, for all of us, and for Ian. And I'm really, really, really proud of myself. And, right now that you asked, I'm like, and of course I didn't. Of course I didn't. Yeah, because I can't for so many reasons. And I never will. So I feel really confident with that. Like, no question. At all. And I took some weeks to talk to different people and talk to my care team and really get to a place that I feel and felt confident enough to say that out loud. But yeah, man, it sucks thinking about that. But of course that happened.
I think we're often, and even in my own experience, I mean, I have had moments where, I never struggled with suicidality, but there were moments where the pain was so deep that you just want the pain to be gone and you don't know a way to get rid of the pain that you're experiencing. And so in a logical yet illogical way, we sometimes think these things would be best for us. And then I'm proud of you for making it through that night and being where you are today. And I know that it's incredibly challenging.
Thank you. Yeah, but it is a relief to not to feel so confident that is not a problem. Yeah, and if people are listening and they're in that difficult space, go ahead.
There's help.
There's so much help. Yeah. And I mean, both of us, I'm telling you, Ian's telling you, Grant's telling you, we love you. And there's lots of support. And that's where I think like that support comes in, right? Like it's so important. And that self-love to be born into a community.
It's hard sometimes because we know we need something. The one thing we want the most we can't have, so then we don't know what we need.
Right.
Sometimes we just need to sit with our thoughts. Sometimes we just need to write down what's in our head. Sometimes we just need to feel what's in our heart, and it's not easy. But as cliche as this sounds, the only way out is through. You have to go through the grief. You have to move forward with it. To your earlier point, it is true. The people we lose knew us and how we saw the world. And so that piece goes with them, and it's incredibly challenging because your identity to them goes with them now too, because we're not the same person that we were with them when they were in our lives, and that can be incredibly challenging. So like your identity as a partner is now forever shifted. I'm just wondering like how that sits with you today. You kind of mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah. No, it's really, really, really hard. It's really hard, but it's also really beautiful. Like I know that, and I'll touch on it at the end when I read the note from Ian. I know how important and how impactful I was to him and continue to be, but that I was to him while he was alive. And yes, only Ian saw lots of stuff, but there are lots of people in our family and friends of ours who know and saw firsthand and understood as much as they could how great our love is and was, and how much work I'd put into myself over, almost 7 years with Ian, and how much I changed for the better and found such healthier ways to communicate and hold space for someone, and how Ian was able to walk towards rather than run away when there were issues and different things like that. So yes, it is so difficult because Ian died at 31 and way too early. I'm also very grateful for how we loved and for both of us in the roles that we played in the loudness so that people could understand and be part of it. You know, me, him, and my mom are so close, and we would dance and be silly, right? So no, my mom doesn't know exactly what it was like to be in Ian's brain and how us being silly was so great for him. But she knows about as much as she can because of how close we were, right? And how close we continue to be, and how close my mom and Ian were in their relationship. Incredible. And so it's really hard. But my brain goes to telling people, live while people are here. Live while you're here, right? Now it's a very comforting thought. And this is not in a thought of, I am going to go off myself right now. But we all die. And my mom spoke about it on a podcast that she joined. You know, this idea of impermanence is actually quite beautiful. And I wish with everything that Ian didn't die at 31. Like, that is so young, and that was way too young for all of us and way too young for him. I'm very sad on his behalf. And because it doesn't need to be a but, because this is now life. Mm-hmm. And I'm deeply grateful, if not more, for how we lived, because other people were able to witness it and be included as much as they could. So it's very hard. And I'm very, very, very grateful for Ian and how we chose to live together in our relationship and all of the love and support that we had to be able to get there. Yeah, so it's hard. It's so hard.
And I think having an awareness now, you know, that life is unpredictable and there is an end, and we do die, as much as we don't want to, or we think we're the exception. I think that gives us reason to live while we're here.
Yeah, it does. It does, exactly. And Ian and I were living so much before. And then he died. And now I'm giving myself permission to live in different ways that I didn't even think about before. And so, yeah, you know, it makes me sad that I'm like, it doesn't make me sad. I'm very glad that I am self-aware in the ways that I can be. Yeah, because actually it wouldn't be easier to not have the support and or knowledge and or reflection or whatever that I do. Yeah, I was speaking with my therapist last week about anger and just how yucky it is, and how, and again, this is just speaking about my own journey and my own grief journey, just how detrimental it can be to who I am. And I've had issues with anger in the past, and just how destructive it had been for me. And yeah, so like, it's like, let's say like with like the stage of anger and grief, right? Which again is so not linear. It's not that I haven't felt angry at all at different points in this. And like my mom has said, like earlier on, she would say like, you can be angry. And I would say, no, I know. But what does it, like, it's, I know, and I have been angry maybe for minutes here or there at times. It's just that anger has been so detrimental, and it's not that I couldn't feel it, but it's not helpful for me to kind of force it on.
Yeah, I was gonna add to your anger point that you know, oftentimes, not all the time, but many times, anger, if we do experience it in these moments, is often a secondary emotion. And so it's like we look at, okay, well, what's under that? Probably sadness and heartbreak and hurt, and that's perfectly normal. It's just that sometimes the anger is the more easily accessible emotion for us. So I just wanted to add that there for anyone that's struggling with anger and thinks that, you shouldn't feel bad about it.
No. And I'm really glad in the beginning I was a monster at times with my mother. Spoke about this on my podcast with her. And now we're at a place that I'm so little of a monster, but annoyingly, I'm able to tell her, like, no, Mom, this has nothing to do with you. I am so sad that Ian's dead, And yeah, it just sucks. But yes, validating the anger part for anyone hearing this. And also, like, if you're like, it's allowed and so natural, and whether it's a secondary emotion or not, yes, it is valid. And I'm very glad that I don't stay in that angry place with my mom. See, even like when you too, when we're talking, it's like we validate our own experiences, but then I feel like I have to, or you just felt like you had to, I think, validate people who are listening to this and in how it affected them.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just like getting back to like people. There's oftentimes a lot of shame and blame and guilt that can arise in these experiences. And I just feel like we need to let people know that it's okay to feel everything that you've felt like these last 4 months. Like, it's okay to feel a certain way about it. And those feelings are going to change. And just like, I think, again, just like having an awareness that it's okay to think these things and have these feelings can really help as we move forward with processing it, because we won't feel bad about it.
Right, or feel like we're going crazy.
Right, exactly.
Right. There was a question that I really liked. Okay, so you have heard so many different stories of grief and shared them with the world. If you're able to, what ways do you think, if there is not a universal, but a theme that you've seen happen a number of times, what is something that people are able to take away from grief, or in which ways have you seen it shape people? Not in negative or positive ways, but overall.
That's such an interesting question. And I don't think I've ever been asked that before. Many times people tell me they never knew how resilient they were. And I always find that so interesting and empowering in sort of a way, because it's like we do feel this sense of strength and grit that we get from the grief experience. And it's like we didn't want it to happen. We didn't ask for it. We wish we could change it. We want our person back. And at the same time, we almost develop these new muscles that allow us to see the world in a different way. And so in some ways, I've heard this many times, that like grief becomes their superpower in some ways. And I don't really want to make that as a blanket statement. Grief is horrible. I don't wish it on people. We do change as we move forward with grief. And I was asking my my grief group the other day, I said, kind of to your earlier point about what Dr. Marasco says in the film, do you only want them to be a sad story? Can we, as we move forward, get excited about the new version of ourselves? Can we get excited about the new memories that we're going to make and the people that we haven't met yet, the ones that show up for us when we least expected them to? It doesn't take away the pain. The grief and the gratitude for new life experiences can coexist, and that took me a long time to learn. But I've heard that from a lot of people. Having gratitude for new experiences, learning to become a new version of ourselves, is okay. We can hold space for that and we can hold space for the grief. One does not cancel out the other. And I think that's really important to know as we move forward with it, especially for people if they think they should be, quote unquote, over it. There's no getting over a loss like this. We move forward with it, and it becomes part of us, and it becomes part of our identity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's a great kind of overarching theme. And right, of course, grief is horrible, and none of us would ever wish it upon other people who've experienced it. But I understand what you mean when you say grief is your superpower, because what else am I supposed to do now? Like, Ian died. The worst thing that could have happened happened. And 6 weeks before our wedding, everyone was so excited. I'm going to do what I want to do now, you know? And that looks different moment to moment often. But we had friends who just moved to Thailand, and Ian didn't know because he died before they had like a date, and we would laugh and be like, yeah, we'll believe it when we see it. And now they moved. And so I've thought about going to visit, and like, it's not a question to me that, first of all, that I will, and it will be incredible, but it's not a question to me if Ian's there or not, right? Or if he's giving me permission or not. I'm grateful and thankful that we were in a place that I feel completely confident with his support in everything that I will ever do. It's not a question to me at all. But if you don't feel like that and aren't in that position, like, you deserve to live, however that looks to you. And that might not be going to visit friends in Thailand, because you might, have kids here that you need to take care of, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But like I said, like, the idea that, and the reality that we all die one day. I'm 31. Let's say I live to 90. I've already lived a third of my life. And, and on the one hand, I'm like, thank God for that, because I miss Ian so much. And at the same time, it's like, I'm going to do whatever with the next X amount of years, right? And we all could die today. Who knows, right? And so I'm going to do what I need to do. And I don't know what that means. I have some ideas of what the future will look like, and lots I have no clue. And yes, that can be very scary. And when I feel more grounded, it is what it is. Ian would always say.
You're right. It is scary. We know that it's scary because we don't know what to expect. And the part I try to tell people is like, it's scary because we don't know. Can it also be exciting because we don't know? And I know that's really hard because our natural inclination is to be afraid of what we don't know. You made a point about living, and Ken in the documentary told me with death and dying comes life and living, because we're still here. And like you said, we don't know how long we're here, but we're here now. And are we able to find those ways to live in a way to honor ourselves and our own experiences? It can be incredibly challenging, though, as you know. And I just hope people can have compassion for themselves to know that it's okay to not do it perfectly. There's no right or wrong way to go through these types of experiences.
Yep, absolutely. And I have to do a whole podcast episode about this on the side, but just like a comment, and then people have said, and from the beginning, like, you don't have to feel bad if you feel joy or if you smile. And it felt weird in the beginning. I don't know if it ever felt bad or bad enough that it's something that I remembered as a feeling from it. I have no question that Ian wants me to be happy. Like, again, like I said that. And I want to feel joy. And I do feel joy at different times in this, this new joy. But I look forward to a point that I'm at a place that I just say I feel joy at times, not I feel this joy or this new joy or this joy in this new life, because that just doesn't feel right most of the time. Um, so yeah, I guess in a sick way, I do look forward to the rest of my life and the relationship with Ian and how it will change and deepen in so many ways. And I'm terribly heartbroken that he died. But this is life now. And this is life now. And so, yeah, I'm not going to off myself. And the opposite, I'm going to live. Because we all die one day. And the craziest thing happened. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to do some fun things and bring some love and memories to people who Ian really loves and who loves us and that I love. And yeah, what else can I do? I mean, there's lots that I could do, but I would never do that. It's just not me or us.
I'm proud of you for that.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks. Yeah, and I just wish and hope for other people that they have the support, but I wish and hope even more for people who are listening that need to be the support that they're able to be for themselves and for their friends who are grieving. And then when they go home at the night and have to hold space still for that sadness, because that's a way that they're able to show up for themselves and for life and the realities of life of grief. And then they're able to show up for that person more who needs them. We do need support and it's life-saving. Yeah. So thank you, Grant. Yeah, for making this movie and for being you. And thank you to your wife who, you must hold lots of space for each other in some difficult ways too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be making a film about grief because that's a lot to do. And a task that, yeah, can be beautiful at times. And as we've acknowledged, is really, really difficult and really sad. And a part of everybody's life, always, as much as life is death is. And we celebrate the pregnancies and we celebrate the births and we mourn the deaths and we are terrified when a diagnosis comes. And I just hope that there's a bit of a meeting, in 30 years that society is able to see a bit of like a middle ground in that, or in so many things can exist at once and it doesn't diminish the other.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll finish with this one. As someone who's still in this very, very, very early stages of grief. I was going to say acute, but we'll use that for the scary night and kind of that space that I was in when you first emailed me. Is there kind of one line that how you would summarize the film or a line about grief that you really feel is impactful if someone's listening and in that acute space of grief or in grief at all?
That's a hard question. We could also call it active grief. That might be a better term because you're still experiencing it in some way.
But that's funny. You would say that that active is forever, no?
We certainly that's such a good point. I mean, we do experience the grief forever. I think we experience it in some form forever. It does change over time. I think I mentioned that earlier. It does change over time. But there are certainly moments I think that it's all encompassing. I mean, it's a full body experience. I think if I was to tell anyone anything, it's that to just have compassion for yourself. It's an overwhelming experience, and taking it step by step, just like the smallest moments. You don't have to write a book or make a movie. You can, watch a movie. That's a step that you take, is watching something fun, or having ice cream one day, or something that, little things that you want to do for yourselves. I think moving forward is what we make of it, like the meaning as we move forward is in us, and we get to decide what our grief story is and what our story becomes. But I think, as cliche as it is, time really helps us a lot, and just allowing space for you to feel all your feelings.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all of those words, and I agree with them. And yeah, allowing you to feel your feelings and hold space for that, so that life can continue in whatever ways it will. My family who had lost an amazing, amazing, amazing wife, and mother to his children, said, and it's actually song lyrics from a cousin of mine, life goes on, but it just doesn't go on the same. It's something along those lines. And, when he first came to visit and told me that, it was like, oh my gosh, like horrifying. And now it's kind of sickly comforting, because it's true. We get to choose if life continues. And yeah, we don't have to know how it will or anything, but it will. And so I so appreciate what you're saying, to hold space for those feelings. Yeah, I would say is like definitely a first step, and then a step to continue forever. Yeah. Thank you so much, Grant. Thank you so much for your incredible film, Meet Me Where I Am. I'm putting in a plug. You can watch it on Tubi, Apple TV, or Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I'm in Canada, and so Tubi was the way to watch it. And it is, Grant, thank you so much. It is an incredible film, and thank you so much for your first message to me. I really, really, really needed that validation. And your film is incredible, and you are incredible, and you understand grief in ways that are so deeply impactful. So thank you for putting your film out, and thank you to everyone in it, and thank you for initially emailing me. Yeah, that was very, very, very important, and continues to be.
Of course. Thank you. And I think if I could leave people with anything, it's just, if you're looking to help and support someone, just make that first message. Just send that first message. It's not going to be perfect, but just letting them know that you're there is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Grant. Deeply. Lovies. I'm going to read a love note from Ian, as I always do. And this is what I mentioned earlier, is that I know how important I was to Ian and continue to be. And that is a gift. That is such a gift. And so this one says, on an envelope, and it says, I love you so much, baby. I'm so dang thankful for you, with a little heart, and then XOXO Ian. So, Grant, thank you so much. This was incredible. And yeah, thank you for being you, and for reaching out at a time in desperate need.
Thank you. I'm glad we know each other.
Thanks, Grant. Thank you, lovies. We will see you next week. And yeah, thank you.